In the vast expanse of ancient Persia, where sun-baked earth met a horizon alive with shimmering illusions, the crackle of tension signalled something beyond arrows. Persian archers, masters of the bow, indeed sent volleys to darken skies, but they wielded an even more curious weapon. Mirrors, polished bronze discs, gleaming with captured sunlight, flashed across the battlefield like chaotic stars in daylight. These weren't merely ornaments, they were psychological pawns, turning the relentless sun into an ally. As glints danced across enemy ranks, confusion crept in. An artful blend of light and shadow, where hesitation could mean victory or defeat. Imagine stepping into the sweltering sands of ancient Persia, where warriors wielded more than just arrows. They wielded light. Here beneath the blazing sun, Persian archers commanded not only volleys of death, but eerie glimmers that haunted their foes. At the height of the Achaemenid Empire, Persia was a monumental power, its military a vast tapestry of tactics, with archery taking centre stage. These archers, cloaked in flowing robes and armoured in resilience, could darken the sky with arrows, a spectacle both awesome and dreadful. Persian archers were renowned for their mastery of the recurved bow, an engineering marvel crafted for precision and speed. Unlike the longbows of medieval Europe, these bows were compact but powerful, designed to unleash a rapid barrage of arrows with deadly accuracy. Crafted from a blend of wood, sinew and horn, each bow was a testament to Persian ingenuity, capable of enduring the harsh landscapes they roamed. The sight of their arrows blotting out the sun was a psychological onslaught, a prelude to chaos designed to fracture enemy morale. The Achaemenid Empire, guided by leaders like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, relied on a complex blend of adaptability and tactical prowess. Persian archers were more than mere soldiers. They were versatile assets capable of scouting, skirmishing, or delivering the main assault. This adaptability reflected the Empire's strategic depth, balancing physical might with psychological finesse, a philosophy that resonated on the battlefield. Central to the archers' deadly craft was their use of strategic formations tailored to the landscapes they traversed. Persian generals, mastering both geography and psychology, employed tactics like dividing archers into units or arranging them in crescent formations. This ensured that their arrow storms were relentless, covering expansive swathes of battlefield and leaving foes with nowhere to hide. In the Persian art of war, archers played key roles, deftly knitting psychological warfare with devastating physical impact. Picture the scene. A battlefield eclipsed not by dark clouds but by a cascade of arrows raining down, each flight a component in a chilling choreography of conflict crafted to unnervingly unsettle. Persians orchestrated these lethal clouds with precision, leaving even the most battle-hardened opponents disoriented. Arrows fell like a ceaseless downpour of death, designed to unnerve, distract and disrupt. Timing became everything. The perfectly synchronized release-halting advances or creating chaos, a testament to a doctrine that skillfully wove strategy with raw might. In society, these archers were revered, a symbol of Persia's cultural and technological zenith. Archery wasn't just a martial skill, but a societal rite, blending agility, precision, and philosophical depth. On the battlefield, these values transformed, showing the Empire's identity through fine precision with the bow, a narrative thread forever linked to Persia's historical grandeur. Beyond tangible achievements and into the realm of legend, Persian archers emerged as mythical figures. They occupied a sacred space where reality and myth intertwined, celebrated in tales of supernatural precision. Legends depicted them as fate's guardians, altering history with a single, expertly aimed arrow. These stories, rich in myth and embellished with admiration, shaped perceptions long before battles began, embedding eternally the image of the Persian archer in collective memory. Among the marvels of Persian archery, the use of mirrors stands out, adding a layer of mystique. Chronicles of nearby cultures record not only the rain of arrows, but strange, captivating flashes of light that heralded them. Mirrors caught sunlight, turning it into dazzling waves aimed at enemy ranks. This was no mere display. It was psychological warfare at its keenest, sowing confusion and magnifying the archer's intimidating reputation. In the desert sun, these mirrored flashes spoke volumes, emblems of Persia's intent and its mastery of intimidation. Closing this chapter is to glance back at the enduring echoes of the Persian archers, whose ingenious blend of skill, strategy, and intimidation created a feared military force. Their legacy, woven through historical corridors, reminds us of their tactical brilliance that reached beyond mere physical prowess. Their methods, adaptable and resonant, continued inspiring future generations of military tacticians beyond their time. Even now, the skilled archer remains an indelible symbol of human ingenuity, the lone watchful figure casting a shadow across history's ever-turning page. In the heart of ancient Persia's sprawling empire, a curious object began its transformation from a mundane household item to a tool of psychological warfare. These polished metal mirrors, born in the bustling workshops of Susa and Persepolis, were initially objects of personal grooming, crafted from bronze or highly reflective copper. Unlike modern mirrors backed with glass, these mirrors relied on painstakingly smoothed metal surfaces to capture a reflection, cherished as much by nomads as by the royals. However, Persia's arid lands and relentless sun revealed their potential beyond personal vanity. Military tacticians began to see these mirrors as tools capable of more than reflection. They could manipulate light itself. These reflective discs, integrated into the evolving arsenal of Persian warriors, became silent but significant allies. While polished surfaces were not new to military strategies, the Persians perfected their use, weaving them into their complex web of battlefield tactics. Reflective metal held mystical allure in these times, linked to divination and repelling malevolent forces. It was a small leap then to harness such objects for warfare. Mirrors thus transitioned from personal items to agents of disarray. This shift illustrated the ingenuity of Persian strategies, where daily life, religion, and superstition naturally intertwined. The artistry involved in mirror making was a craft of dedication. Metal workers, known for their skill, repeatedly beat and polish metals using sand and other abrasives, slowly coaxing a dull metal into a gleaming surface. Such craftsmanship produced mirrors that were not only functional, but also visually striking. Their aesthetic appeal meant these mirrors were symbols of status. An exquisitely maintained mirror suggested access to resources and admired craftsmanship, distinguishing common soldiers from their elite counterparts. Thus, within the hands of Persian archers, mirrors were more than tools. They represented the empire's refined blend of technology and artistic prowess. On the battlefield, deploying mirrors required a blend of creativity and strategy. The Persian military, ever resourceful, exploited environmental conditions skillfully. Placing mirrors among archers on elevated terrains allowed them to harness sunlight effectively, dazzling their foes with blinding glare. This innovation turned sunlight into a silent ally, sowing chaos and breaking enemy ranks, giving Persian archers the upper hand. This tactic of sun glint deception showcased the evolving Persian military doctrine, from physical confrontation to mastering mental unpredictability. The psychological impact on their adversaries was profound. Imagine soldiers under the relentless stare of the Persian sun, squinting into glaring flashes of light, each glint causing doubt to flicker through their ranks. Such disruptions bred uncertainty. To those unversed in such tactics, these flashes were baffling, perhaps divine messages or curses, chipping away at morale. Mirrors rendered battles not just physical confrontations, but also tests of nerve and wits, enhancing the enemy's fear of Persian might and cementing their formidable reputation. Adapting these mirrored tactics to varying landscapes reflected Persian adaptability and astuteness. The empire's landscape stretched from barren deserts to sprawling plains and mountainous regions. Each required a unique strategy to capitalize on the reflective potential of mirrors. In flat deserts, unobstructed light carried reflections for miles, while in rugged terrains, mirrors had to strategically capitalize on limited sunlight. This flexibility ensured that mirrors could disrupt and confuse regardless of topographical challenges, maintaining Persian advantage across diverse environments. Furthermore, mirrors complemented Persian archery seamlessly. These warriors, already famed for precision and speed, found mirrors to be the perfect foil. By capturing light to obscure enemy vision, archers could enhance their effectiveness, exploiting the confusion to unleash their deadly volleys. This marriage of mirror and bow was emblematic of Persian ingenuity, a battlefield symphony where momentary distraction could lead to decisive triumph. Beyond warfare, mirrors bore significant cultural and religious weight in Persian society. They were seen as conduits of spiritual reflection, bridging earthly and celestial realms. Within the Zoroastrian faith, light symbolized divine wisdom, and mirrors were thus imbued with transcendental meaning. Their battlefield use resonated deeply, draped in the aura of prophecy and divine favour. By harnessing both light and belief, Persians amplified their strategies, casting an enigmatic shadow over their enemies, imbued with both mortal and divine intimidation. The chronicles of ancient historians like Herodotus speak of such reflective tactics, lending a vivid dimension to these artifacts. These records, along with inscriptions from Persian cities, link mirrors to mythic tales, underscoring their dual role in history and legend. Such accounts enrich our understanding of Persian military evolution, where innovation interweaves with tradition, creating a strategy that is at once historical and mythical. In later times, the legacy of these mirrors reverberated beyond Persia. Neighbouring civilizations adapted the concept, though often unsuccessfully, highlighting Persian mastery of psychological warfare. Eventually, with the advent of gunpowder, mirrors receded from their central battlefield role. Yet, their influence lingered. Ceremonial armaments often retained reflective elements, a testament to their enduring impact. Today, these ancient tactics captivate historians and tacticians alike. The use of mirrors challenges our understanding of warfare beyond brute force, showing how the simplest elements, manipulated with skill and understanding, can shift the balance of power. By delving into this narrative of Persian innovation, we unearth timeless truths. In war as in life, the power to captivate and confuse is as vital as the strength to conquer. In the early light of dawn on an ancient battlefield, the Persian archers were already a study in calculated chaos. The chill air carried the scent of earth and sweat as soldiers began to line up in rigid formations. Yet, among the Persian ranks, an unusual weapon gleamed, a polished mirror catching the hesitant morning sun, sending brief ripples of light across the field. This glint was no mere accident of nature, but a conscious decision, a signal cloaked in mystery, an act of psychological warfare as bold as any volley of arrows. The Persians understood that battles were often won long before the first weapon struck. Their mirrors, far from being mere adornments, became tools of disorientation, used to plant seeds of doubt and hesitation in enemy ranks. To those squinting Roman soldiers, the flicker of light was not just a natural occurrence, but a potential shift in the fate of the day. Ancient armies, reliant on visual signals, found themselves entangled in confusion. A charged moment stretched before any real assault began. The brilliance did not blind, but it unsettled. It whispered that perhaps there was more lurking behind the gleam than met the eye, turning the disciplined into doubtful followers of shadows. The true strength of these polished discs lay not in their ability to harm but to manipulate reality. Persian commanders were shrewd leaders, tapping into the primal fears of those who faced them. Stories of Persian prowess spread like wildfire, kindling the imagination and dread of foes who fretted over challenges they could not comprehend. It wasn't just a battle they faced, it was the untouchable rumour of mystique that stood before them, conjured by the flick of a mirror, a trinket that became a talisman of strength. Reflections became more than mere physics. They touched on deeper fears and beliefs. Light has long held mystical associations, and the Persians skillfully wove these into their warfare. They harnessed the symbols of divine favour, invoking an aura of invincibility. Flashing mirrors were not just clever signals, but omens, shimmering tokens of the otherworldly. The very sight of them left adversaries pondering whether these gleams guided earthly manoeuvres or heralded heavenly decrees, a quandary that thrived on the thin line between reality and superstition. Understanding and leveraging these psychological tugs required both art and science. The Persians had mastered reflections, cataloguing the angles of incidents, and knowing precisely when to create a dance of light. Crafted with precision, these mirrors were made of polished bronze or copper, polished with meticulous care to gain that perfect shine. They knew where the sun would rise, how its rays would fall, and placed their troops to capitalise on this natural phenomenon. Timing and geography became unwitting allies, as commanders orchestrated light across their army's movements, baffling minds more decisively than any battle tactic ever could. It was not just their own sense of control that these flashes disrupted, but also the famously disciplined ranks of the Romans. The rigid structure of Roman battle tactics became vulnerable to something as ephemeral as a gleam. Just a hint of unexpected light shattered their predictability, the usual steadfastness cracking, if only for a profound instant. Persian psychological warfare rippled through lines that should have stood unyielding, nudging seasoned soldiers into an unfamiliar world of doubt and reconsideration. Not even seasoned generals were free from the pervasive reach of doubt sown by these mirrors. A flicker could quickly unravel the best laid plans, driving leaders into reassessment and moments of crucial hesitation. What does it mean, that flick of light from afar? Is it a celestial sign or a tactical trick? Such questions lingered, undermining decisions and forcing shifts in strategy. The shadow of doubt stretched into the minds even of those at the height of command. Training Persian warriors to wield this subtle power was as crucial as teaching them archery. They became adept at using light as a covert weapon of war. Understanding when and where to position their mirrors was akin to knowing how to draw a bowstring taut. This training was as much about resilience to their own tactics as it was about rattling their opponents. The warriors internalized the strategy that chaos worked best when they, themselves, remained unfazed by its presence. To hold a mirror was to grasp divinity itself. Reflective metals were reflections of the troops' own belief in their eternal triumphs. These mirrors symbolized a conduit between the mundane and the divine, invoking the favor of celestial beings like Mithra, god of light and truth. Each soldier, peering into the mirror, saw not just a battle-hardened face, but the assurance of divine backing, a vision of invincibility beaming back at them. The brilliance of Persian tactics was ever evolving, commanders refining their methods as each encounter offered new lessons. They adjusted to weather, geography, and adversarial styles, ensuring a dynamic strategy. These lessons registered across battles, fostering specialist units expertly trained in such optical manipulation. Dominating through disorientation, they adapted, ensuring they remained an inscrutable adversary whose weapon was an unfixed light that danced and dazzled unpredictably. Such ancient tactics echo into modern times too, where the power of surprise and perception still reigns supreme. While today's battlegrounds may be digital and technological, the roots of psychological warfare reach back into Persia's campaign of light. Persian ingenuity is a reminder that even the simplest tools, wielded with cunning and psychological precision, can outshine the most sophisticated arsenals. What remains consistent is the timeless understanding that war is not only a clash of swords but of minds, where even light can cut deeper than steel. The vast open landscapes of Mesopotamia and Anatolia were more than just mere backdrops for ancient battles. They were critical elements of the drama. Stretches of land without cover offered both challenges and opportunities for armies clashing under the burning sun. The Persian commanders saw not only the tactical advantages of these open plains, but also the strategic potential of the relentless sunlight that drenched them. In this natural arena, the sun was a double-edged sword, and the Achaemenid Empire knew how to wield it well. With thoughtful calculation, they turned this abundant light into a part of their arsenal, bending nature's brilliance to create moments of confusion and hesitation among their foes. High ground was not just overhead positioning. Persian generals saw it as a theatre stage, ridges from which they could orchestrate movement and manipulation of bright sunlight. Polished metal discs, no larger than a man's hand, became weapons by exploiting the sun's glare, catching the enemy's eye and capturing their mind with doubt. In these orchestrated flashes, the Persians were conducting not just war, but psychological theatre. Opponents didn't see mere errant glimmers. They saw threats, signals and distractions, a prelude to chaos that would be unleashed with the rain of arrows not far behind. In these displays of brilliance, the battlefield's unlikely performers were the horses. Cavalry, as critical to ancient battles as the infantry itself, reacted unpredictably to visual stimuli. Horses, ever sensitive and prone to skittishness, could be thrown into disarray by sudden bursts of light. Recognition of this vulnerability wasn't lost on Persian tacticians who transformed uncertainty into strategy. One bright flash could send a horse careening out of formation, an opportunity for archers poised to exploit any break in the enemy's lines. These split-second decisions triggered cascades of panic, that rippled through formations, amplified by the ancient belief that such omens might have higher significance. A skirmish's heart lay in its leaders, those few souls burdened with the responsibility of command. Yet in these dusty plains, command was only as strong as the clarity of its communication. A stray glint across a commander's eyes could overshadow gestures or muffle shouted orders, replacing clarity with confusion. And confusion on a battlefield was a contagion. Here the sun and mirrors worked together to blur not just commands, but to erode the surety of orders, threaded through the tumult of soldiers' cries and the clash of arms. But the glare of mirrors was not merely disruptive, it was deceptive. With strategic genius, Persian commanders deployed reflected light to disguise their maneuvers, leading vigilant watchers astray. A flash could direct enemy attention to a feigned thrust, while real strategies unfurled unseen in the opposite direction. As bodies of men shifted unnoticed through shadowed routes, the light show served as a masterstroke of misdirection, ensuring the unsuspected until their actualized advantage came to bear fruit on the battlefield, a revelation often too late for adversaries to counter. Yet reflective tactics weren't purely physical. They resonated deeply with soldiers steeped in traditions and folklore, where omens were as powerful as any blade. Through the lens of belief, every glint of light had the potential to be a divine signal, an omen of victory or defeat. Such perceived divine interactions could unsettle even the bravest hearts, transforming tactical solar flares into cosmic confirmations of the gods weighing in on men's quarrels. Under such skies, feet dragged and swords hung heavy, unsettling nerves more effectively than any sword's edge. In the grand symphony of battle, reflective light played a part in prophecy too, just as much as strategy. In the intertwined realms of war and cosmic fate, reflections bent narratives towards myth. Chroniclers and poets took these tales to heart, binding them into fables where celestial forces spoke through the sun's dance on metal. As if sanctioned by divine decree, these episodes of light became stories and legends, reinforcing soldier morale or crippling the opponent's resolve with perceived celestial favoritism. All of this, the grand orchestration of war's light and shadow, was the masterpiece of Persian commanders who understood not just the tactics, but the artistry of battle. These leaders penned their strategies with the precision of poets and the acumen of philosophers, utilising the Earth's vast canvas under the sun's unyielding gaze. Light became their narrative tool, shaping tactics steeped in both intuitive genius and calculated intelligence. In this shimmering story of ancient warfare, adversaries knew that defeating the light-bound Persians required innovation on their own side. Across seasons and terrains, other armies watched, adapted, and evolved. Commanders learned to install shields as barriers to sunlight, rearrange formations, or exploit weather conditions that could turn light's advantage against its users. In time, the brilliance of Persian glints was met with curious eyes rather than terrified ones. Soldiers were trained to see light winking across a ridge and recognise it not as an omen, but as strategy. A grand reminder of the ever-evolving play of shadow and shine in human conflict. Beyond its immediate applications, the mirrored messaging of ancient Persians reached further than just military bindings, embedding itself in the cultural visualizations of power and insight. From battlefield to sculpture, from lore to legend, mirrors in Persian culture transcended mere functional use. They became symbols of clarity and truth, reflections of human and divine interplay, marking stories and art with their captured light. In art and heritage, these symbols mirrored through time the profound depths of human imagination where light met shadowed history, shaping stories that continue to glimmer brightly in our own narrative continuum today. In the vast, sweeping expanses of the Eurasian steppe, where sunlight played tricks on the eye and landscape alike, the Scythians emerged as masters of psychological warfare. Known for their swift raids, these nomadic horsemen understood that speed and surprise were paramount. The Scythians adorn their weapons with polished bronze, catching the sun's rays in dazzling displays that confounded their foes. The sudden twinkle of sunlight reflected off their weaponry was not meant to blind permanently, but to create a fleeting moment of hesitation. It was a deft psychological maneuver, causing enemies to falter just long enough for the Scythian cavalry to strike decisively. This cunning use of reflections wasn't born solely from battlefield necessity. It was embedded in the very fabric of Scythian culture. The tactics passed from one generation to the next, a legacy of their understanding that mental warfare was as crucial as physical combat. Their artisans, skilled in the art of polishing weapons to a brilliant sheen, elevated these items beyond mere tools of war to instruments of psychological manipulation. This duality, strength merged with mental acuity, resonated with future civilizations, including the Medes and Persians. The Medes, kindred spirits to the Persians, embraced Scythian innovations as they built their empire in the late 7th century BCE. Although lesser known, the Medes left an indelible mark on the tactics later employed by the Persians. They integrated reflective metals into their military array, not just as tools of war, but as symbols of power and perception. Reflective surfaces complemented their grand strategy of creating formidable illusions on the battlefield. For the Medes, these mirrors held profound spiritual meaning, linked to religious rites and divination. By intertwining religious belief with military strategy, they added an ominous layer to their campaigns, one where a flash of light could be seen as a divine warning to adversaries. Meanwhile, the rising Persian Empire inherited these psychological warfare tactics, embedding them into their expansive militaristic framework. Persian artisans, known for their masterful metalwork, took the concept further, crafting polished pieces that blurred the lines between the tactical and the artistic. The Persians understood that a well-reflected glint of sunlight could do more than just dazzle, a lesson learned from both Scythians and Medes. This fusion of aesthetics and strategy expressed the Persian ethos, a seamless blend of beauty and warfare. Encountering diverse cultures across their vast empire, the Persians absorbed and reimagined these reflective techniques. Their alliances and conflicts with neighbouring tribes and civilizations enriched their military playbook. This adaptability was a cornerstone of Persian endurance on the battlefield, allowing them to improve upon tactics initially fashioned by Scythian and Median influences. These cross-cultural exchanges proved that military knowledge knew no borders. It was a fluid currency, constantly exchanged and refined. In ancient times, mirrors held meanings beyond their physical uses, carrying a weight of symbolism and superstition. To the Persians, Scythians, and Medes, mirrors reflected more than light. They revealed truths, granted omens, and flirted with the supernatural. To carry a mirror into battle was to bring an element of the divine steeped in the mysticism of an era. This caused opponents to see a mirrored surface as more than a tactical ploy, seeing instead a portent of heavenly favour or wrath, a psychological boon in any conflict. Such tactics capitalised on what we'd now call cognitive dissonance. Ancient soldiers, unaccustomed to deliberate visual deception, faced unexpected phenomena that unnerved them, shaking their confidence in the thick of battle. Persian commanders understood that the reflective glimmer could shatter morale, creating just enough doubt to tip the scales in their favour. This manipulation of perception was a form of warfare as effective as any weapon. Ancient historians like Herodotus captured this interplay of light and warfare with fascination. His writings often blurred reality and folklore, colouring his descriptions of Persian tactics with awe and intrigue. Herodotus illuminated the sophistication of Persian stratagems, presenting them as masters in the orchestration of visual deception, a hallmark that greatly influenced Greek views and subsequent Western military philosophies. The legacy of these reflective strategies extended well beyond antiquity. While mirrors may have receded from physical battlefields with advancements in technology, the underlying principle of psychological warfare remains relevant today. Modern tactics, though more sophisticated, still echo the same foundational tactics of mental manipulation, distraction, and cognitive disruption, pioneered by the Persians and their predecessors. This continuity of strategy reflects an age-old warfare dynamic, the shaping of enemy perception, as critical now as it was in ancient times. Contemporary reenactments and academic reconstructions breathe life into these ancient tales, shedding light on how reflective tactics might have played out on historic battlefields. Through these explorations, we gain insights not only into the mechanics of past combat, but into the minds of those who waged it. Each new archaeological discovery deepens our connection to this storied legacy, reminding us of the brilliance and ingenuity of ancient civilizations that still whisper to our modern sensibilities. In the rich tapestry of ancient Persia, the Magi wielded a unique blend of spiritual and political influence, acting as custodians of Zoroastrian traditions. Their presence was felt across Persian society, from guiding emperors to standing beside warriors on the battlefield. These priestly figures loomed large in the cosmic dramas of their time, drawing upon celestial knowledge rooted in astronomy and carrying out ritualistic ceremonies that intertwine the divine with the mundane. In Persia, where fate and divine intervention were often seen as intertwined with everyday life, the Magi's presence on military campaigns was strategic, fortifying troops with a mix of spiritual assurance and moral authority. Incorporating spiritual elements into warfare wasn't solely a Persian phenomenon, yet the Magi had a distinctive approach in connecting earthly struggles with celestial designs. By using mirrors and polished metal discs, they cast glints of light across battlefields, which were interpreted both as omens and intentional messages from the divine. The reflection of sunlight became a dance of divine light, underscoring the belief that invisible forces governed the human fate, and reinforcing morale as much as it unsteadied adversaries. This blending of the ethereal with the tangible may have blurred lines between tactic and symbolism, offering a glimpse into a world where strategy and superstition went hand in hand. Central to the Magi's power was their deep connection with Mithra, a deity associated with light and truth. In Zoroastrian cosmology, Mithra was a mediator of cosmic order and justice. Therefore, mirrors and reflective objects were not simply devices of distraction, but sacred instruments that symbolise the dissemination of divine truth. When reflective surfaces cast gleams of light on battlefields, these bursts did more than distract. They were seen as manifestations of divine observation. Such symbolic gestures suggested that the eyes of Mithra watched over soldiers and judged the righteous. Inscriptions on reflective objects further amplified their spiritual significance. Mirrors often bore symbols or texts of Mithric origin, which heightened the object's sacred aura. these inscriptions turned practical tools into sanctified artifacts, linking the wielders to a higher power and imbuing them with purpose and protection. Such symbolism reminded warriors of the cosmic order, suggesting that their cause was under divine scrutiny. The Magi did not limit their influence to spiritual guidance. They orchestrated elaborate pre-battle ceremonies designed to invigorate troops with courage. Such rituals involved sacrifices and prayers, calling for the favour of Ahura Mazda and other deities. Reflective surfaces captured and amplified celestial light during these rites, underscoring their blessing. Such ceremonies emphasized communal strength, as soldiers entered battle not just as combatants, but as instruments of divine will. Beyond the spiritual, these polished mirrors served as a psychological weapon. The mere presence of the reflective apparatus amidst warriors tapped into the battlefield's mental landscape, where fear and faith jousted for prominence. This added a psychological layer to the already intricate Persian military strategy, suggesting to opponents that they faced not only mortal foes but also celestial forces. For enemies unacquainted with the intertwining of celestial phenomena and divine sanction, a flash of light became an otherworldly vision, prompting confusion and fear. This infusion of divine justice rendered mirrors invaluable tools of psychological warfare. These mirrors were not plain surfaces. They were often inscribed with intricate symbols and holy glyphs, translating the interconnectedness of light, truth, and cosmic justice. This lent the reflective surfaces an aura of divine significance beyond their tactical use. Such inscriptions broadened their role to encompass divine encodings that played into both the literate and symbolic understanding of soldiers. The carvings became a visual lexicon in the chaos of war, reaffirming each soldier's personal narrative within the broader cosmic one. Mirrors mirrored more than reflections. They embodied cultural reverence on the battlefield, weaving symbolism with Persian ideology. By capturing sunlight and casting it back as divine glimmers, mirrors came alive in a cosmos governed by Zoroastrian principles. These artifacts bore the weight of natural forces harnessed under human agency, transforming warriors into agents of cosmic intent and warriors of spiritual warfare. But the Magi were as much strategists as spiritual guides, employing mirrors with tactical artistry to exploit terrain and sunlight. Their use of reflective surfaces was a calculated dance of light and shadow. Charismatic commanders strategically orchestrated movements that maximized light capture, creating a web of visual signals designed to mystify enemy ranks. Mirrors became dynamic elements under the Magi's command, shifting with the heavenly constellations to enable momentary and monumental surprises. The blend of divine purpose with tactical prowess revealed the Magi's sophisticated grasp on their dual role as priest-strategists. While reflections as war tools were not exclusive to Persia, they resonated across various ancient cultures. From Greek hoplites to Vedic warriors in India, mirrors bore witness to humanity's fascination with sunlight as cosmic power. Such cross-cultural reflections highlighted a shared belief in celestial phenomena guiding human affairs. Persian chronicles bring the weaving of mirrors into warfare to life through vivid battlefield stories, mixing mystical reflections with human valor. Narratives emerged of soldiers glimpsing divine clarity in fleeting reflections, feeling empowered by cosmic intervention, and enemies shaken by perceived divine presence. These accounts remind us of the enduring intersections between human myth and light, inviting us to explore how ancient legacies of light and reflection continue to shape our cultural narratives today. The vast Persian Empire, with its ambitions stretching into the heart of Greece, seemed like an unstoppable force. The Persian army was not just a tidal wave of soldiers, it was a dazzling spectacle. Amongst their ranks, subtle yet eerie flashes of light danced across the battlefield, as if the sun itself had joined the fray. Greek chroniclers, with eyes squinting under the bright sun, noted these peculiar glimmers, intrigued and somewhat perturbed. The Greeks, known for their steadfast discipline, faced a new kind of psychological warfare, reflections that glimmered like signals from some celestial drama. As the dust rose and the anticipation thickened, those flashes were more than mere reflections. They now heralded the chaos of war. Greek soldiers, shields locked side by side, were accustomed to facing relentless odds, but the shimmering distractions disrupted their focus. Even the stoutest heart can falter when enveloped in an enigmatic glow. Every Greek warrior, fiercely devoted to the freedom of their homeland, faced an unnerving challenge. A challenge that could make even seasoned warriors second-guess the intentions behind those glimmering Persian shields and mirrors. At Marathon, the clash intensified. Here, the outnumbered Greeks famously triumphed. But the Persian tactic of using sunlight to distort and confuse was not lost on them. As the Greek forces prepared to engage, they saw not just Persian might, but flickering lights that obscured the true size and intent of the Persian ranks. The sound of swords clashing was yet to follow. But these reflections already wove uneasy whispers amongst the soldiers. In ancient times, such phenomena could easily be seen as omens. For the Greeks, these were not simply shards of sunlight. They were deliberate subterfuges from the Persian playbook, a display of psychological prowess alongside martial might. Then came Plataea, a battlefield set beneath the shadow of Mount Cithairon. Here, the Persian forces reassembled, bearing familiar reflections that now carried a haunted familiarity. These shimmering lights, more than just a curiosity, symbolised Persian innovation and assumed superiority. For the Greeks, recently seasoned by warfare, these illusions of light became an expected part of the Persian war dance. Yet, even the most stoic soldiers could feel the nagging whisper of those light-induced phantoms, seemingly inviting them to glimpse movements that weren't there, a trick of both the eye and mind. Seasoned by prior engagements, Greek soldiers of Plataea now faced these dazzling tactics with hardened resolve. Beyond the gleaming weaponry was the cunning coordination of Persian commanders, wielding mirrors not solely for illusion but for intricate communication. Reflective signals danced across the fields, transmitting vital commands. It wasn't just about fear, these were genuine tools of coordination amidst the vast Persian ranks, a precursor to systems of communication that would come centuries later. The Persians managed to blur the line between mythology and tactic by using simple mirrors to orchestrate a symphony of martial might and power. Adapting swiftly, the Greeks developed responses to counter these dazzling distractions. They learned to maintain cohesion, transforming shield formations and using their rocky terrains to their advantage, minimizing the impact of the perplexing reflections. Their strategies evolved. Reflections couldn't pull apart trained phalanxes if the soldiers within were prepared and drilled for such tricks. The ingenuity of the Greeks sprang from both necessity and insight, creating tactical responses that looked beyond mere spectacle to sustainable resilience. In these glittering confrontations, reflections took on a mystical air, emblematic of divine interference. The soldiers, upon returning home, spun tales of their encounters, blending fact with myth. Perspective blurred under the influence of such radiant apparitions, as stories became legends retold by firesides, reflecting an era where the divine and mortal realms often intertwined. To the Greeks, these weren't just reflections but tokens of divine interest, making the mere act of war feel steeped in cosmic theatre. Yet beneath the shimmer and lore lay a genuine consequence: the subtle elevation of Persian reputation. The ambiguity of battlefields aglow with reflected sunlight added a layer of doubt to Greek readiness. These tricks were more than an amusement, they seeped into the psyche, adding a psychological edge to the physical contest of arms. Despite this, the Greeks found strength and unity amidst these spectral challenges. What began as reflections turned to reflections of destiny, a shared resilience born of adversity. Against flashes that sought to bend the will, they moulded a steadfast narrative of defiance, shaped by light, enduring beyond swords and shields. Through these fiery trials, the Greeks wove their collective spirit into a tapestry, not just of war but of shared human experience, growing stronger for all the mirrors cast in their path. In the quiet aftermath of battles at the edges of their vast empire, the Romans sat by their campfires, spinning tales of Persian warfare through a filter of awe and confusion. Traders and soldiers returned with stories from the east, their words echoing with descriptions of peculiar artifacts like eye charms and sun coins. To Roman chroniclers like Ammianus Marcellinus and Tacitus, these cultural oddities posed a challenge, as they wrote their quill-scribbled notes that could enlighten or mislead as much as they recorded. The practical Romans, known for their disciplined legions, found themselves grappling with descriptions of reflective discs carried by Persian archers, wondering whether these were decorative trinkets or strategic tools. In their depictions, the Romans, framed by the might of their heavy infantry tactics, saw these mirrors as alien, possibly superstitious. Misunderstood details could fuel the imagination, leaving Roman soldiers speculating whether these objects held a strange psychological power over the battlefield. Here lay the mystery. Did these gleaming surfaces simply reflect sunlight, or did they manipulate the psyche to a greater extent? Among the most intriguing interpretations was that of the mirrors as eye charms, a concept embedded in the shared superstition of the evil eye. Romans too believed in the power of the gaze, and the thought of mirrored surfaces warding off or redirecting such forces was as fascinating as it was unsettling. Some accounts describe these objects as talismans woven into armour or weaponry, believed to blur the enemy's vision. Not just in the physical sense with blinding reflections, but metaphorically, clouding judgment on the battlefield. To the Roman soldiers, these mirrors offered an exotic parallel to their own superstitions and protective practices, drawing connections between the cultures even as they clashed. What seemed magical was often strategic, yet, in their superstitious minds, such mirrors held a mystique, blurring the line between reality and belief. The idea was both enchanting and unsettling, challenging the understanding of warfare by elevating perception to a battlefield all its own. An engaging notion of how belief becomes a weapon, where the Romans saw the magical in the strategic. In time, tales of sun coins joined the lexicon, as Roman scribes tried to capture what their soldiers witnessed in the desert haze. These discs, round and gleaming, were confused for actual coins, but they served a far different purpose. To soldiers accustomed to solid currency, these blinding discs wielded in battle hinted at magic and strategy intertwined. Misunderstanding fed the mystique. the notion of sun coins became a vision of strategic brilliance overshadowed by fable, obscuring the nuanced battlefield strategies employed by the Persian archers. Even the notion of enchanted arrows found a foothold in Roman imaginations. Stories emerged of Persian warfare that married physical prowess with elements that seemed, to Roman eyes, more supernatural than strategic. In the absence of full understanding, these reflective devices became embedded in legends, tales concocted to explain away unexpected losses by infusing Persian tactics with an aura of enchantment. This blend of ignorance and awe cultivated a mythos around the Persian archers. The narrative transformed regular warfare into a theatrical display of mythical feats. Such dramatization reshaped the mental landscape of Roman soldiers, framing Persians as almost mythical foes adept at bending nature to their will. Despite misconceptions, these tales captured Roman imaginations and instilled fear, adding layers to the legacy of Persian warfare, almost like ghosts haunting the pages of Roman reports. The crux of these mistranslations, however, lies in the linguistic and cultural chasm between the Romans and Persians. As Persian descriptions passed through Greek and Latin translations, layering with each shift, errors compounded, drawing a barrier as literal as it was metaphorical. The gap in understanding blurred an ancient truth. Psychological warfare extended beyond battlefields, weaving into narratives and shaping Roman perceptions of Persian technology and strategies. Historians today tread lightly through these Roman narratives, dissecting fact from fiction in a delicate dance of ancient scrutiny. Were these reflective practices born of superstition or strategic innovation? The answer might linger in a balance where belief enhances tactics, crafting a psychological weapon as potent as the tangible arms of the time. Romans, through their lens of religion and magic, painted these customs with an air of superstition, missing the tactical depths to which such ingenuity reached. Despite grappling with misconceptions, Roman abridgment of Persian traditions sparked curiosity, igniting admiration for the ingenuity of their Eastern adversaries. The fascination aftermath fed the tales of Persian warfare, thickening the veneer of mystique that draped their archers and archery, bleeding into Roman culture in unforeseen ways. This complex tapestry of understanding, still shadowed by misconception, provided fertile ground for advancing optics and reflective technologies within Roman society. Ultimately, in the mingling of these misinterpretations were ironies brightened by the flicker of campfire humour. Roman soldiers may have found a certain gallows humour in stories spun from confusion, a comedic salve against the enigma of Persian light play. Laughter held fears at bay, where jest among ranks acknowledged the shared human tendency to exaggerate the mystique of the other. The humour, dry and irreverent, connected soldiers across cultures, reminding them all of the humanity underlying even the most misunderstood tactics. Throughout the ages and beyond the mist of translations, these stories of Persian mirrors linger, echoing the manifold paths misunderstanding can forge in the annals of history. The tale of mirrors in Persian warfare is a fascinating one, tracing a path from sharp battlefield strategy to eventual obsolescence. As we turn to the era of the Sassanid Empire, we find the very nature of warfare shifting. Armies began adorning soldiers with heavier armaments, scale armour, chainmail, and even early forms of plate armour that offered much needed protection but also hampered their agility. The battlefield had transformed. What was once a chaotic dance of arrows, flashes, and psychological tactics turned into the stomping grounds of heavily armoured soldiers, inching forward with grim determination. The light, nimble units that used mirrors for psychological warfare found themselves out of step. Mirrors, once a tool to disorient opponents, lost their edge in a world dominated by brute strength. Psychological distractions became less effective against soldiers encased in armour, focused on marching through their enemies rather than being swayed by flashing lights. Persian archers, who had once used glinting mirrors to confuse their enemies, now faced tactics that required more substance. Cavalry units, once dominant, saw their brilliant charges overshadowed by the relentless advance of infantry formations. Thus, mirrors faded from military arsenals, becoming more ceremonial than practical. As the focus of warfare shifted, so too did the emphasis on siege tactics. Persian warfare, once alive with quick manoeuvres and psychological tricks, adjusted to the reality of long drawn-out sieges. Against walled cities and fortresses, massive siege engines like catapults and battering rams took precedence, requiring logistics, not light shows. In these protracted battles, the distance rendered mirrors ineffective. The emphasis was now on overwhelming defences, not merely disorienting an enemy on open plains. While mirrors flickered out on the battlefield, they found a new life as symbols, ceremonial tools rather than instruments of war. This transformation was paralleled by an evolution in military communication. Armies that once used mirrors to send ambiguous signals moved toward more reliable methods. Distant echoes of drums, vibrant flags unfurling in the wind, horns cutting through the din of combat. These advancements allowed for synchronizing vast formations, offering precision in command that mirrors, dependent on a flicker of sunlight, simply could not match. Thus, mirrors, with their brief flashes, surrendered to the clarion certainty of organized communication. Despite fading from the battlefield, mirrors retained a significant cultural and symbolic presence. They transitioned from war tools to emblems of power, beauty, and mystical knowledge. To the Persians, mirrors were more than reflective surfaces, objects through which truths could be revealed, offering glimpses of the divine. Even as soldiers laid them aside, the reverence for mirrors endured, captured in art and literature, echoing through the halls of philosophy and poetry, where they symbolized introspection, wisdom, and purity. Mirrors endured in the visual language of ceremonial shields used in parades and religious events, reflective surfaces that once sought to manipulate foes now dazzled allies and subjects alike. As shields glinted in the sun, they signified not deception, but legacy, commemorating the prowess of Persian military heritage. Shields, decorated with intricate designs, told stories of battles and victors, and the mirrors set into them were no longer weapons but heralds of glory. Among the elite Persian cavalry, traditions lingered. Cavalry units revered for their horseback prowess adorned themselves with mirrors, not as psychological instruments, but as decorations steeped in tradition. These mirrors reflected not enemy lines but the proud lineage and honour of those who wore them. Shimmering on helmets and breastplates, they were a testament to times when such brilliance held sway in battle. These ornaments, once practical, now served to distinguish and uplift, linking present-day warriors with their legendary predecessors. This decline of mirrors as tools of warfare mirrored larger changes in Persian military priorities. As the empire expanded, the challenges of sustaining and managing vast territories took precedence over psychological tactics like mirrors. The focus shifted to maintaining strong garrisons and securing supply lines. moving away from the disruptive flourishes of warfare's past. Persian society itself was reshaped, stratified, centralised, and bureaucratically complex, reflecting a pragmatic turn in both governance and military strategy. Yet, the legacy of mirrors lingers, an indelible mark on history that fascinates scholars and the public alike. Their use represents the ingenuity of ancient tacticians and adds a nuanced layer to our understanding of psychological warfare. Mirrors offer a glimpse into a time when innovation met tradition on the battlefield, when even the tiniest glimmer of light was weaponized. Though centuries have passed, their story remains a poignant reminder of human creativity and the adaptability of ancient strategists. Mirror use has ripple effects, influencing modern perspectives on combat and strategy, illustrating the timeless dance of light and shadow in warfare. In the world of Persian art and literature, mirrors have continued to shine. They adorn the vibrant canvases of Persian miniatures and echo through the lines of poetry, symbolising reflection, knowledge, and the delicate balance between known and unknown. Metaphorically, they explore truth, identity, and self-awareness, weaving the ancient into the modern, ensuring their resonance in cultural narratives. Thus, the story of mirrors in Persian warfare unfolds, a tale of sharp tactics that transformed under the weight of changing times. From matter-of-fact military tools to symbols of cultural heritage and influence, mirrors chart an arc rich with invention and insight. Today they stand as a testament to a time when even light itself was shaped into a weapon, reflecting an era both distant and strangely familiar. In the age when warfare was as personal as a whispered confession, involving the intimate clash of men and metal, the tale of Persian archers wielding light remains one of history's intriguing quirks. Imagine a battlefield not only filled with the clang of swords, but also the sudden flash of light, a sunlight-spun weapon reflecting off mirrors, casting shimmering glints that danced devilishly in the eyes of foes. This weapon of choice was as ancient as it was clever, relying on the potency of sunlight, in a world where such natural phenomena inspired both fear and reverence, often attributed to the whims of capricious gods. Persian commanders, with the air of magicians revealing their tricks, harnessed this light like an invisible marionette string, pulling fear into the heart of their adversaries. Just as a serpent's vibrant scales warn of venom, so did these light flashes confuse and mislead, promising danger where maybe there was none. Beyond its physical use, this method of warfare preyed on human psychology, capitalising on the need to find meaning and omens in the world's vaguest signals. The battlefield extended beyond mere physical prowess, into a realm where light sown by mirrors sowed hesitation, painting a picture of celestial intervention amidst earthly chaos. Mirrors in Persian culture were far more than reflective surfaces. They were conduits between worlds, bridging the ordinary and the mystical. These were not just tools for self-admiration, but elements of power, capable of bending reality, or at least perception, on the battlefield. In their hands, these mirrors became powerful symbols, bordering on talismans, almost fetishized, serving as an extension of the arm carrying the bow, a fusion of earthly tools and celestial power. When deployed amid battle, these reflective objects took on a sacred aspect, simultaneously strategic and emblematic, as if blessed by higher powers. The Persians demonstrated an innate understanding of nature, particularly the rich tapestry of their sun-drenched lands, using it to amplify their tactical advantage. The sun, both ally and weapon, became intrinsic to their military campaigns, with vast landscapes transforming into majestic theatres of light and shadow play. Persian archers were not merely soldiers, but conductors of this symphony, manipulating spectral phenomena to inspire awe and dread, a blend of cunning that tapped into the primal fear of the unknown. Yet it was not only on the battlefield that these mirrors shone. Their reflective surfaces symbolised insight and truth, a mirror to power itself. Governance and religion used them as metaphors for clarity, the image of a ruler's face absorbing the mirror's light, transforming into a visual symphony of legitimacy. In courts swathed in luxury, mirrors were more than decoration. They whispered of divine favour, emphasising the supposed mandate of the heavens on the earthly throne. Even as military purposes faded into the shadows of time, this potent symbolism of mirrors lived on, their presence rich in the lore of insight and divine rulership. Across centuries, these tactics felt like whispers travelling through time. As warfare embraced new forms of machinery, the mirror's reflective warfare edged towards obsolescence. Persian expertise in strategic illumination may have dimmed with the advancements of armour and technology, but the tale of harnessed sunlight lingers in the corridors of historical ingenuity. Each practiced archer, each master of light, etched their prowess into the cultural consciousness, ensuring that the elegant dance between nature and tactics would not be forgotten. Although these physical tools receded like the tide, their cultural footprint grew, branching through the art of warfare and beyond. Through thoughtful archaeological endeavours, this legacy flickers back to life, offering glimpses into the innovativeness of Persian commanders whose understanding of light turned nature into an instrument of war. The use of reflections ripples through time, appearing in new guises across different epochs. From the strategic use of searchlights to disorient in naval strategy, to the flickers of symbolic power invoking wisdom and clarity, the concept of reflective warfare remains a fascinating reminder of ancient insight and inventiveness. Thus, as we peer into this ancient story where light became an artful stratagem, we see a world where men waged war with mirrors and sunlight, bridging the natural with the mystical. To the Persian warriors, every glint of light was another arrow in their quiver, a constancy in menace tempered by the divine. In asking you to follow and learn with us, to embrace the enchantment of history's echoes, let this tale of light serve as a testament to the unyielding human spirit's capacity to find extraordinary use in the seemingly ordinary. If you've been captivated, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue to unravel the tapestry of our shared past.